Whoever would like to start, please join us. And there is that black chair behind the door. So this is my first visit to our really new kind of reconstituted committee. So we're gonna spin around. I know Beth probably knows more about us than from the HR perspective, but
That didn't come out right.
He has 5 exemptions. Representative Tom Stevens from Waterbury.
Claudia Lamont, Memorial Washington.
Joe Parsons, represent Thompson, Groton, and Newbury.
Emily Krasnow, South Burlington.
Ashley Bartley, Franklin 1.
Dennis LeBounty, Linden.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Burrows. I represent Heartland, West Windsor, and Windsor.
And I'm Larry Labor, I represent Essex, Orleans, District 1.
I'm Mary Howard and I represent Rutland District 6.
Robin Chestnut, Tangerman, Rutland, Bennington District.
Great.
So if, we have heard and read through the paper and whatnot, and while I think, I've been in meetings where the newspaper reports aren't always as accurate, I kind of wonder if I've been in that meeting or not. And I've read about your proposal, the administration's proposal, but I would rather have the opportunity to hear it from you, and some of the questions that have popped up for us include, is it in place yet? Did negotiations finish? I want to be sensitive to whatever you can and can't say.
Sure.
So welcome. The microphone is yours, Kendall. Welcome.
Well, thank you. So for the record, my name is Kendall Smith. I'm Governor Scott's Director of Policy Development and Legislative Affairs. It's nice to formally meet some of the members I haven't had a chance to interact with, and it's nice to see everybody who I have worked with for a few years now. And Beth, if you maybe want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Beth Fastige. I am the Commissioner of Human Resources for the state of Vermont.
And depending what questions you have to, Emily Kazicki, Chair, as you mentioned, from the Department of Financial Regulation, is here with us as well because they are a co-partner in this endeavor. While I am speaking, I'm going to share my screen and just put a website up behind me. Again, if I can do so without, as a co-host, hopefully messing anything up. Okay. So we'll scroll through this in a second. This is the Hartford website, which is the insurance company that we are in the process of going under contract with. And I'll talk a little bit more with Beth about that in a second to your prompt, Chair. And then I don't know if you guys are a paperless committee or not. I sent this to Ron, so it should hopefully be posted on your website. But this is a little, just like a 2-pager. Well, this one has, I think, a note I made for myself on the back of it that outlines the governor's program. So we've been working on this model for a few years now, since 2019, I think, end of 2019, early 2020. And what the governor, what his program does, and again, it is in implementation. So that's one thing we'll go through in a second. This isn't hypothetical. It's past kind of the proposal phase where we're ending the conclusion of contracting with the insurance company that's called the Hartford to offer paid family medical leave benefits to state employees, and then private businesses, nonprofits, and individuals, if your employer doesn't offer it or you're an independent contractor, can opt into this marketplace and this pool, and we're leveraging the state rate that we're getting for our 8,000 or so state employees to make it more affordable than if this was being offered independently with an insurance company just coming in and doing it themselves. So what you have in front of you is a few, just from a timeline perspective, key dates of what's being implemented. So starting on July 1, we will be offering paid family medical leave insurance to state employees. Then July 1st, 2024, it will expand. So private businesses and employers, should they want to opt in and get paid family medical leave insurance for their employees, can do so through the marketplace that we're standing up. And then the next year, July 1st, 2025, so small employers, what we mean by that, again, is like independent contractors and individuals, if you're not being offered it through your employer, could choose to purchase the coverage. It is voluntary. And then in terms of what is being covered, if you flip to the back, for our state employees, and Commissioner Fastigi can elaborate on this a little bit because it was bargained with them, is 6 weeks at 60%, up to the Social Security cap, which is 160,000 now, I believe, in terms of claims. The eligible activities are for birth of a child or care of a newborn during the first year after birth, the adoption of a child or placement from foster care within the first year of initial initial placement, caring for an employee's spouse, child, stepchild, foster child, ward who lives with the employee, parent or parent of the employee's spouse, any qualifying exigency where an employee's spouse, son, daughter, or parent is a covered military member on covered active duty, to care for a covered service member with a serious injury or illness, if the eligible employee is the service member's spouse, son, daughter, parent, or next of kin. And then lastly, any serious health condition that makes the employee unable to perform their job. So that's the personal medical leave piece. And the other things I went through are the family leave pieces. I said again, I think I started 6 weeks, 12-month period. We'd be covering 60% of our state employees' average weekly wages. There is a waiting period for medical leave, 7 calendar days, payment begin on the 8th. For family leave, claims to be paid for the first full scheduled workday of leave. So this that we're offering the state employees should be considered the floor. So if a private business or an individual wants to opt in, and let's say the business says, I want to offer my employees 8 weeks at 80%, I'm making this up, wage replacement, or I want to do 12 weeks at 75% wage replacement, they could work with the Hartford and design the program that works for them and their employees. They'd also have the option of how they're doing the premium share. So they could say, I'm going to pick up all of it. We're picking all of it up for our state employees. State employees will not have any of this deducted from their paychecks. Or conversely, just to be really open, they could say, I'm not going to cover any of it. I'm going to offer it, but the employee would have to choose to have the full cost deducted from their paycheck. Or they could choose, I'm going to do 50-50. Again, it's the same way employers design other benefits that they offer their employees, where you see different variations depending on the company that you work for. So that, I think, unless I forgot anything, Beth or Emily, feel free to chime in. But that is the outline of the program, again, that they're offering state employees, and the timeline of when it will be extended, again, for private businesses and individuals that might want to join. The website that I have in front of me is an active website. You can Google it now. It says Vermont Voluntary Paid Family Medical Leave Insurance through the Hartford. This will be ending up being a portal that state employees can use, again, as well as businesses and individuals once those timeline dates kick in. I'm not going to read this to you all word for word. You can explore it at your leisure should you want to. It contains most of the information that's on the sheet that I just handed out. But the Hartford has put up frequently asked questions about, is this mandatory? What's covered? What are the benefits? You can see there's a list of again, different questions here that you can drop down and see the answers to that they host on their website, and then where you can go to get more information. We have been, over the past few weeks, through the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, when they've been interfacing with employers, they are keeping a list of employers who have expressed interest and want more information for, again, once we kind of hit the July 24 timeline and there's more information to share with them about how they can sign up and get in contact so that we can make sure to follow up with them when those dates hit. They've also been, we could get more information from the Agency of Commerce if this is anything the committee's interested in. Surveying employers, again, are you interested? If so, we'll put you on a list. What are you currently offering for paid family medical leave insurance, to get a sense of the field, at least whoever is anecdotally volunteering those responses to us. It's been great information. Again, happy to share some of that with the committee if it's anything you want to see more of. I know I've been talking kind of quickly, so I don't know if there's questions at this point, but Beth, do you maybe want to at this point talk about where we are in the contract finalization with the Hartford and, Chair, you had prompted with some questions about like if a contract had to be terminated or renegotiated, like what are some of the contract terms?
Okay, so this is we selected the Hartford for a regular procurement process. And our contract with the Hartford is typically we go for a 2-year, then plus 2 additional single-year contracts. This one we're doing a 3-year plus an additional year, and 4 years is kind of the maximum for a contract. And it's a 3 years because it's really a 3-year ramp-up program with employees starting this July, businesses starting the following July, and then individuals starting the next the next year. So the cost for the contract is really the first phase for the state of Vermont. So we are contracting with the Hartford to provide this for our employees. Those costs and those contracting costs and the fact that we've contracted enough was enough of an incentive to commit to building this program for the rest of Vermont. So this is not a product that is available now in the open insurance market now. So you can't, you can't go and call and say, hey, I want to buy this product because it's not there. No one's filed an insurance. So this is a commitment for an insurance company to do this. And we're really excited about having that available. And now you've heard a lot of testimony from businesses who are very interested in a paid family leave program. And I expect we've had interest over the past many years. And I think that there will be interest in purchasing the program. So we're excited to offer it to our employees. We announced it. We actually negotiated it a while back, and we're excited to be able to finally be able to implement it on July 1st. So employees have been eagerly awaiting its arrival, and we kind of have a ramp up phase. So the major education for employees and that marketing will really start in June, right before they're able to start using it in July. What else?
So the contract, again, around changes,
Right.
if you just have to.
Right, so that contract, unlike most of our contracts, there are 30-day kind of a no-fault clause, 30-day notice, and we can exit the contract without cost. We would not be able to do that in 30 days practically because we'll be offering it to our employees and we're contractually obligated to provide them this benefit. So we would have to either renegotiate something else with them. And so, so that part of it and our relationship with employees, we would have to figure out how we were going to do, but we have the ability to legally sever that contract. If for some reason, I don't know, you did something that required us to do that, I guess, but.
So again, it's a 30-day no fault clause in there for termination.
But I also hear reality, especially with negotiated contracts with our employees, would the reality is that you would have to extend it for them.
We would want to, we would have to, it would be very difficult for us to just cut off a benefit to employees with 30 days notice. Like we just wouldn't do that unless we were.
But we wouldn't, like, again, it's a very highly unlikely scenario. When we did bargain this with employees, it was either this or a pay increase. And so if we did not achieve our desired outcome of offering paid family medical leave, they would get, was it a
0.25% increase? And if we actually implemented it and then withdrew it, then we would be on the hook for a 2.5% pay increase for our employees.
So in terms,
as well.
Yep. So in terms of a little bit of timeline, so the contract is not yet signed. We think we are approximately 2 to 3 weeks from that happening. Everything has been negotiated. It's in our internal state government right now review process where it has to pass through various agencies and departments for signatures. So that is fairly imminent. The Hartford will need to file with the Department of Financial Regulation on or before March 1st, I believe. So yes, from March 1st, in terms of what the product is, if you want to talk a little bit about that, if that's okay for Emily to weigh in on that piece.
Sure. We expect to receive it by March 1st, like Kendall said, and it will be subject to our normal rate and form review process. So if you're interested to hear more about that, I can bring in someone from our insurance division and we'll talk about, the detailed analysis we do and will do for this this policy as we do for any other policies that are filed with the department.
Emily, actually, could you join us on that red chair there, just pull that red chair over Representative Elder.
There you go.
So after they file, around March 1st, I'm just looking at some of the timeline pieces that we are working with them on and have agreed to. I think this is already done, provide a dedicated toll-free telephone number for employees to use to report leave events. Again, when this kicks in, they would use that phone number to answer calls, triage the claims, talk through processes, and do initial intake work. Like Beth said, then in May and June, marketing materials and communications will start going out. They'll do their customization of forms and claim documents. I'm just seeing if there's anything here that's beyond that is really pertinent to highlight. Around June, Beth will issue the state employee plan policy. We'll be hosting meetings with state employees at that point to educate them about what the insurance benefits are. We already have the website up. The Hartford's already, again, you can find this yourself if you Google the website functionality, beginning claim administration on July 1st. And so that's phase one with state employees. Then phase two leading up to 2024. It's kind of rinse and repeat, but doing some of those similar steps for the public and the private employers with 2 or more employees. And then again, after that, similar activities for doing the marketing outreach and intake for the individual exchange.
So you mentioned that in phase one here with state employees that the state is covering that, they're making 100% of the premium.
Yes.
For the state employees.
Yep.
Do we know what, moving out to 2024, do we have an idea yet from the Hartford about what the individual cost is or what the equivalent is for how the premium cost would be?
So we have some, I want to be very clear, estimates.
Yep.
So for state employees, it's about $4.50 a week. And what would be in the state budget is it 1.9 million?
Yeah.
1.9 million, I believe, is in the governor's recommend, which would again cover the full cost of our state employees, and that breaks down to $450 a week. Because we're allowing individuals and businesses to customize their plans, the rates are going to be all over the place. Because if I'm saying I want to do, again, I'm making this up, 10 weeks at 75%, they're going to be given a different rate than a business that says I want to do 6 weeks at 60%. And so what we think of like an average or a range is, it'll be about $4 to $8 a week per employee. But again, or for the individual, but if you customize your plan, you're going to have a different rate than somebody else who has a different level of wage replacement and a different duration of leave.
Okay, I love it when we have many choices. Like I get, I get how difficult it is to
Right.
try to nail.
It's like we think it's going to be 4 to 8, but again, because people can customize their plans, their rates are going to be different.
And so that would be just a standard deduction on a paycheck of the appropriate amount.
Yep, depending again on how the employer is structuring it, or as an individual, yes, you pay in. I don't know if you guys have any clarifying.
No, that would be the premium amount as opposed to a sliding scale on the lower level of a percentage. So in 2025, if I heard you correctly, it's to expand to include the FMLI individual programs. And I believe you clarified that by saying that would be if my employer isn't interested in voluntarily joining the system, I can join the system on my own for whatever price Hartford is going to quote to me.
Right.
Does that include we've heard from the tax department or from Commissioner Bolio today about part of the difficulties of the self-employed.
So yes, so this includes, I was saying independent contractors, but yes, self-employed individuals. And so you'll see in 2024, it says with 2 or more employees. So 2025 would be fewer than 2 employees. So again, most likely self-employed. Maybe you have one other employee with
There's self-employed, yep, okay.
or if you again are not being offered this through your employer, but you want to have this coverage for yourself. So if you need to take what is currently under federal unpaid leave, you have a wage replacement, you could individually purchase the insurance.
And is there, the question that Commissioner Bolio had for us was where would we go to get the information for a self-employed individual in terms of for the program that's an age 66, how would we get the proof that we have a proviso that they would have to work or show taxes for 2 quarters? But if I'm hearing this correctly, a self-employed person can apply for this, but they will have essentially their own contract with the Hartford. Whether they are quoting, the Hartford has to determine what 60 or 80% of their income is. And so I imagine they'll have to verify that.
Yes. I would have to follow up with them about how, unless you guys know how they would verify that. But yes, when a business or a self-employed individual opts in, or even an individual, they're all essentially individual contracts with the Hartford, like your individual insurance plan with them. And they'll have some forms that you have to fill out to demonstrate your finances. So I don't know, again, if you've seen what samples of those forms look like, but to somehow show what your income is, so they can do that calculation from there, like you're saying.
Right, but they would need to verify it with the tax department.
Probably, or you could maybe.
Not the Department of Labor, because the Department of Labor would be able to do.
I was saying you probably produce your taxes, like your tax forms from the previous year, something to that effect. But I can follow up. I don't know what exactly the Hartford will.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I want to appreciate that this is going into effect when it goes through the process, and we're not. Yes, we have an interest in not so much comparing and contrasting, but just to hear how you managed to work with a private program, because we're coming from a different angle. That said, does this provide job protection outside of, because you have 2 or more employees?
Yep.
Currently, FMLA or PFLA is for 10 and 15, depending on the leave being taken.
Yeah.
We're proposing to do +1 for job protection.
That's a really great question. I'm glad you asked it. When we introduced a bill on this in 2019 or 20, whatever the last time we were all discussing this, the bill did have language for job protections in it for belts and suspenders. So if you purchased insurance to make sure you could use your insurance without fear of losing your job, that is something that if the legislature wanted to put that that protection in place, we would welcome as additional language. But there's nothing in the Hartford contract, because again, it would need to be a Vermont statutory change, shoring up our leave policies that would currently be in place. We would need you all to help us with that part.
Right, and if PFLA stayed the same status quo, only the employees who had +10, +15, or work for companies with 10 or 15 would have that state sanctioned job protection.
Correct.
And an employer been emphasizing that anyone can be more generous than, when you say this is the floor, it's the same thing with statute. Someone within reason and law can be more generous.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And we can pull that language from that bill. If the committee would like to see it, it would be a good idea to have.
No, we have that in again, in.
Yep, in
Age 66, so it's pretty straightforward, just. Questions? Representative Labor?
Thank you. In administering this program, does HR have to hire additional employees?
We do have actually we just did our budget presentation yesterday, and we do have, we've had, just a little plug for my department. We've had a lot of work, especially with, what's happening with the employment situation in the state, where we've had record numbers of job turnover, record numbers of hires, but also record numbers of terminations. So that's really increased the volume of our work for a whole department. So we do hope to have more people to help our department out with a lot of tasks and with a lot of the tasks that we're doing. One of the things would be to help assist with this, but right now we're having we have weekly implementation meetings with the Hartford, and we're ramping up to go. So right now we'll be doing it without any additional employees, but we will. We're hopeful that with all the work we have to do, we'll have a few more in DHR to be able to help us out with this work. Leave is complicated. There's a lot of different things that we have to juggle. We have, you have the federal requirements, you have the state requirements. We have to track all those. We have our contractual requirements with our labor partners. So there's a lot of various aspects that go into that. We have several different leave plans. So tracking all that is complicated, and we're just adding one more complication into it, but it's definitely worth it because we have, the longer you work for the state, the more leave you're able to accumulate. So the more you get a certain amount of leave based on the number of years of service. So our newer employees don't have as much leave, and that sometimes tend to be sometimes our younger employees. And so if they need to go out for the birth of a child or for bonding leave, oftentimes that is unpaid, or they're trying to cobble together, trying to figure out. So this is something that we think that really will help newer employees and will help with our recruitment and retention, especially of those employees that have, less than 5 years of service, where we're kind of the most vulnerable, I would say, of that turnover. So this is one thing that we'll be able to do to help engage them and keep them employed with us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Chestnut Parsons? Chestnut Parsons?
Geez, after that, think of my question. I'm guessing the settling at 60% wage replacement was just to keep, solely for keeping the cost of the plan down, or was there any other?
That's the governor's plan. That was the governor's plan back from 2019, and we matched, our negotiation was to provide them with the governor's plan.
Okay.
So that was the 60%.
So during the process, did you look at any higher rates or?
I think it was kind of like, would you like the governor's plan? Yes, we would. I think that was more about, it's kind of something that we don't have today. We don't have, we don't offer short-term disability to our employers. We don't offer paid family leave. So it was an extra benefit that we were willing to provide. So I think they were happy that they were able to get it. It's not good enough. It's like, this is great, and we think it'll help. So
okay. And the 3-year rollout period of it, as opposed to with our bill, it's just everyone all at once.
All at once. Yeah, the phase-in was important to the insurance carriers that bid. So when we first went down this path, again, I keep saying 2019 or 2020, I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact year. We put out a series of requests for informations, or RFIs first. And we got lots of responses to the RFIs, and having a phase in was important to all the insurance carriers that replied either through the bid process or through the RFI process, in terms of giving them time to build up their own IT and do their rate filing, and they're getting their own kind of financial house in order solvency. Like, I don't know, Emily, if you, from the insurance perspective, can speak at a deeper level than I am communicating right now about it, but I know
yeah.
part of it was like, again, IT, like rate
Right.
design, like time to do the work to meet the needs of the different pools of potential customers.
Yeah, I think helping to build solvency of the fund that they'll use for this particular program, through the dedicated funding of the state program, which will be reliable in terms of the number of participants and what's getting paid in, and then they'll be able to build, their claims experience, better understanding of how much leave is being taken, et cetera, and that will inform the later phases.
Okay, thanks.
Representative Chestnut Tangeman.
I'm curious if you could tell me how many companies bid?
3
I think we had
or 4? 3. I thought it was 3. Beth thinks it's 4. I can follow up with you on the exact number.
Yeah.
Curious. And we had testimony this morning from both Department of Labor and Tax Department about some of the complexities of verifying employment and who collects what information and who they can share it with, and privacy concerns. And yes, we can share that, but we're going to charge for administrative costs. And I'm just, is there any of that with the Hartford? I mean, they have to be verifying employment.
Yeah, so the thing with the Hartford or insurance companies is this is something they do all the time for other types of insurance, like short-term disability, for example, again, depending on the insurance company. So those administrative costs are baked into the rates that we are negotiating and agreed on. So that, again, that $450 a week for state employees includes what they feel like they would need for administrative and operational costs to do all that type of work.
And that $450 a week that's for all state employees, regardless of pay scale, right?
So that's just the average per employee that we're paying. That's not, so the way we'll charge departments for it likely will be based on the salaries in those departments. So the, higher, because this program is based on wages, so higher paid employees up to the Social Security limit can get up to 60% of that. So it would likely count in those employee costs, like more for those employees, and their wages would kind of go along with it. That's like, just like a tax would kind of goes along with how we allocate costs.
Do you know what salary that $450, I mean, if that's an average, what's the average salary that's predicated on? Ballpark.
Well, we can get back to you with that math.
Maybe more like straight division, but
Yeah.
yeah.
You don't
Yeah, we have
around
we say 8,000 employees divided by $450 a week. Is that, I don't know if any math people are here, but.
So again, when we, and Beth, you can speak more to this. So when we were negotiating with the Hartford or getting quoted for rates, it was like, we have 8,000 state employees. We want this type of wage replacement. Like, how much will that cost? And so we can kind of get into the details we gave them in terms of like wage scales and stuff. And then they quoted us like a lump sum. Like, we think we can do this for 1.9 million a year. So it might not have been like that nuanced, or we may not be able to get like what the Hartford's like math rationale was and how they came up with that 1.9 million. And so, and then that accounts for, again, all their administrative fees. And then what we will do as a state is we will pay them like essentially, I'm making this very simple, but like sorry, go ahead.
So it's actually based on how, and maybe Emily has a better, about how insurance, so it is a per employee, it will be a per employee cost. So we send them files and say, okay, this month we have 8,000 employees, next month we have 8,100 employees. So it's a rate based on the employees and their salaries. So it is kind of complicated behind that rate, but looking at the number of employees and their salaries when we bid it, it's about 1.9 million. And that 450 is using the math there. But when you see the rate filing, you won't see 450 per person. It'll be really complicated, and only people in Department of Financial Regulation will probably be able to understand what it all means.
I appreciate the simplicity of the $450 a week. I wish everything, do that with everything. But I'm curious how penciled out for somebody earning 40,000 versus somebody earning 80,000.
I don't know if that's something we'll be able to, is that something we're able to follow up on?
Yeah.
Okay,
But again, the $4 to $8 per, on average per person per week is, if you had a lower wage, it's very likely that you would be paying less.
So, I'm sorry. So once this, so the state, or we'll call the state an employer, because they are, they've made this contract with the Hartford for this rate. Would individuals then be able to call on top of that and increase their coverage so that you could have, if there's 12 people sitting around here, we could have, I'm paying for 12 weeks I'm paying a premium to get 12 weeks of paid leave, but maybe the vice chair is only paying for 6, it becomes whatever. I'm just, it to me, it becomes an administrative nightmare, but is that what's happening, or is it?
Not for our employees. Our employees, it's,
One set plan,
everyone has the same plan.
but once,
so for the individual marketplace, is that what you're asking about?
Marketplace, I'm not sure about, right, so in a,
or the company, I'm just curious, like if the company I'm working for, a private company, they can approach the Hartford and say, we want this product and we want 8 weeks for all of our people.
Right,
They could
yes.
negotiate, they could take this base level that the state's paying and then build on top of that.
So the rates for the private companies, again, we're leveraging this state pool of about 8,000 people to help make the rates affordable. So the way I think where I'm getting confused is your question about like stacking, but again, the private companies will have the ability with the Hartford to design, like I was saying, the plans they want. So if they did want to do 8 weeks at 80%, again, I'm making that up, like they could. And then the Hartford, depending on the number of employees you have and your, I'm gonna say the word experience rating, your experience rating would then quote you back like what that would cost. And then you would decide if you want to pick up the full tab as the employer or if you want to do some sort of premium share with your employees.
So like you mentioned experience rating, so like car insurance, if I get into an accident or my 16-year-old gets into an accident, our insurance goes up X number because of, because there's experience rating. Is that the same thing that's going to apply here? The more
Utilization, basically,
What's that?
with utilization rates.
Yeah.
So like utilization rates go up, would the cost of your
Yeah,
insurance go up? I'm looking at Emily, I shouldn't say what I assume, I'll let the DFR person weigh in.
I will have to follow up on
Yeah.
that question, and
Yeah.
I think it'll depend on what we see in the rate filing. I'm sorry, I'm jumping into this issue, and I'm not sure exactly what's, in the contract on that specifically, but I can follow up on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the more information we can get just over time, even to understand it, to be able to explain it.
Yep.
As long as it's not as complicated as the common level of appraisal, I think I can manage it, but, Representative Krasno?
Yeah, so in it kind of picking up on that too. So I was just curious. So, and again, I'm not comparing or contrasting the two things, but if folks, so obviously this is the floor, but I just noticed two things. So the bereavement leave and the safe leave.
Are not in here.
Right.
So yes, that is a difference. H66, as I understand it, has bereavement and safe leave. This does not. This is personal and family, medical and leave.
These are following basically the federal guideline, FMLA qualification, what qualifies for federal FMLA,
Right.
plus what would qualify for the state, but they're very, very similar.
But folks could negotiate those can they add other definitions into,
I think we would have to ask the
We'd
Hartford,
have to ask the
Yeah.
Hartford.
but
so that would be between the company and the Hartford. Got it. Okay, thanks.
Any further questions? All right. Really appreciate your time coming in and
Thank you so
sharing this information with us and letting us know. So then when you're not here, we can compare and contrast. But
No problem.
No, it's really helpful to know, even in general, have for our constituent work to in place for state workers and. Oh, yes.
Yeah, real
Please.
quick. So, and sorry, that was a lot of information. So I was like trying to absorb and follow. So would this, in comparison to, sick time, regular sick time, or how does that play? Does that, take place or in conjunction with, or this is a separate thing? So whatever the state offers for current sick time, those all still apply, and then this is an additional benefit?
This is an additional benefit, but it's meant for, so the way we accumulate sick time for most employees at the state, it doesn't actually go away until you use it. You don't get paid out when you're done, but there are many employees that have accumulated more than a year of sick time. Those employees, I don't see any reason why they would want to take a leave that's only going to give them 60% pay when they could take the full sick leave and get the full percent of pay. So while, it works kind of when you're for an event that qualifies for that where you would have job protection under FMLA, that's under the same conditions where you would be able to use this leave. So there, it's not, it would be either or. You can't use it at the same time. You can't say, I'm going to use my sick leave to supplement the 60% pay. If the day, it's like, it would be rather than taking an unpaid day, you could get, or an unpaid week, you could take the 60%. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. And then the last thing, it didn't mention intermittent use or
Yes.
consecutive use?
Right, you could, depending on the qualifying event. So sometimes you might have some reason that you have to stay out all the time continuously, but there's sometimes you might be getting some type of a treatment for an illness that requires you to be out for 4 hours a week. And so that's all set up when you qualify for the leave, and then you would just, you'll be all set up, and then you say, okay, this week it was these 4 hours, next week it'll be this amount of time. So that's all kind of worked into the program.
Thank you.
There, I thought I was done.
Sorry.
I know, because I have a question and Representative Benjamin has a question.
Some of us think more slowly than others. I just want to verify that I believe you said that what you looked at was this 6 week 60%, because there's a provision, as you know, in H66 saying that somebody could utilize a private plan if it meets the same things, and we've had ongoing discussion about whether those plans exist, but you didn't have any discussions with Hartford about, let me rephrase it, did you have any discussions with the Hartford about that, about a plan that would?
A more
generous plan?
Or for
Yes.
state employees, or? Because the private plans could be more generous than the 60%. Like we were saying, they have the flexibility you could negotiate that with the Hartford on behalf of your business if you wanted to do more. But for state employees, we're at 6 weeks, 60%.
So potentially Hartford could have a plan that meets 12 weeks, 100% as written now.
Hypothetically.
Hypothetically, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, possibly. We'd have to ask them, but like hypothetically,
They could
yes.
draw that.
They
But
could design,
like,
they could design a plan.
Yes.
So if I took, well, first of all, 8,000 employees includes classified and exempt?
I believe so.
Yep, all classified, exempt in the executive branch and the judiciary.
Great. And then just quickly, if I accumulate sick time and I need to take it, because it would make sense, right? If I had months and months of sick time accumulated because I've worked for the state, I almost don't need this program. The question is, when I take sick time, I have job protection. Or do I have job protection in a similar way that FMLA is written?
Yes. Yes. You have job protection based on FMLA.
So for employees of the state
And also job protections a lot. additional job protections as a classified employee for sure, where they have actually a property interest in their job. So there's above and beyond the FMLA, there's a lot of job protections for our employees.
Right, and then for contract employees, again, there are many benefits that are negotiated. Was this a bargainable item once upon a time? And that's,
We bargained this.
This is, yeah,
Yeah.
all benefits are
Yeah,
bargainable.
we bargained this.
yeah, okay, no, I just wanna, we're gonna get to labor issues as we go along, and so I just wanna,
All benefits are bargainable under this, under SELRA, for public employers.
right,
It's in state employees, so that's, labor law is different for other groups,
Yeah.
but specifically for state employees, benefits are bargainable.
yeah, and so for committee's information, so basically, when we say it's bargainable, there's a list of things that that have been agreed upon every single contract. And then there's a list of things that anything can be on the list, but both sides have to agree to bargain it at any given time. And again, it could be different in every section, but I just wanna make sure, because it sounds to me like a state employee who's worked here for a long time may not ever use this insurance.
It's possible. That's why Commissioner Fitzgerald was saying for some of our newer employees that
Right.
haven't accrued the sick time, this will be particularly helpful for a newer employee.
All right, I think that's clear, so.
Yeah, and I do have I think I have some statistics, I don't know if I brought them with me about kind of where we are with leave. I thought I maybe actually had them, but maybe I didn't. Yeah, actually. So for our employees, if you're interested, so this was out of, I'll just go to the classified employees, so 7480 classified employees at the time this report was pulled. 585 of those have less than 1 week of accumulated time. So that's their sick, their personal, and what we call annual leave, which is like vacation. And then 1,449 had less than 2 weeks, and then 3,150 had less than 6 weeks. So about over half of our employees have more than 6 weeks accumulated time already. So it's just, so there are employees that even if they had something where they needed to take time off to care for a family member or their own medical issue, they would not likely use this program.
Would they be, but they could,
If
if they chose to take a 60%
Right.
leave cost. And there's no it's not mandatory that they use up their CTO
No.
first, right? So it remains their choice of how they'll be compensated for any kind of leave like that. Okay. Phew. Okay, now I'm done. Anybody else almost done?
You asked my last question.
Okay. Thank you so much, again, and if there's information that you'll get back to us on, just email to Ron,
Perfect.
and he'll share it under your name on our website.
Great.
And I so appreciate you taking the time on short notice to come in and fill us in.
Thank you for having us. If you think of more questions, I'm always just next door, so stop in. I can try to help or find someone who
We're
can.
much closer physically here.
Yes.
Right down the hall.
Exactly.
So, great, thanks so much.
Thank
very much.
you.
All right, let's go up live.